Hey, greetings, everybody. I'm Larry Williams, the Director of CARMA, the Consortium for the Advancement of Research Methods and Analysis at the Rawls College of Business at Texas Tech University. It is January 10th, 2025, and it is my pleasure to be inviting you and welcoming you to CARMA Quick Chat. You may know that a Karma Quick Chat is where we take the opportunity to catch up with people who are going to be contributing to Karma and hear what's going on with them and end up hearing a little bit about their upcoming webcast. A webcast. And if you're not familiar with Karma, we are an academic research center, and you can find out more about us at karmattu.com. We offer a variety of programs aimed at social and organizational studies faculty and students to develop their research method skills. And it's a real treat to be talking with Don Bergh today from the University of Denver. And the reason we're talking with Don is because in 3 weeks, on January 31st, he's going to be doing one of these webcasts, a repeat performer, if you will. Don has presented with us before, and his topic will be matched sample designs for selection effects. And that will be starting noon Eastern time on January 31st. We have one earlier in the day by Kevin Corley on qualitative methods. We start it early so that it's kind of a little bit more friendly for his part of the world. And so, Don, it's good to see you. Welcome back to Carmen.
Thank you very much, Larry. It's my pleasure. I'm delighted to be
So,
here.
Don, we've crossed paths in several different ways over the years, including a time when I was happy to participate in Strategic Management Society's efforts at developing the research methods community. And I've kind of watched it from a distance, and it seems like it's just turned out so great. So I was wondering if you could just tell us about what that's been like for yourself and for the community.
Yeah, happy to do so. Thanks, Larry. Yeah, probably 10 years or so ago, maybe it's a little bit longer. Brian Boyd, Margaret White, and I had some meetings with members of the executive committee of the Strategic Management Society, which serves in the strategy community, to develop a separate area focused entirely or exclusively on the practice of research methods. The Strategic Management Society has many interest groups. Those tend to be focused on particular topical areas such as corporate strategy, business strategy, behavioral strategy. And they also had a teaching community, and a community differed from an interest group in that it kind of cut across all the others. Well, obviously, since we have academics and research involved with Strategic Management Society, we wanted to get a research methods community developed too. So we went through the process of getting support for it at the executive level and meeting with the committee members. And we did some really early sessions to test interest in that, such as it had a similar Ask the Experts that we see at Accounting Management and SMS. And we had a conference probably around 2015, 2016, and attendance was excellent for it. So based on that and based on the idea, we were able to launch this research methods community, and it just took off. It exploded. And the community has a variety of features with it in terms of providing panel sessions, providing Ask the Experts type of sessions on all variety of topics. So strategic management has been increasing its methodological sophistication, and the research community was helped establish to facilitate that even more. So
Yeah,
it's grown. It may be the largest group slash community now in the SMS. So the
yeah.
growth has been tremendous.
Well, that's great. Yeah, now that you bring that up, I think when SMS was in Denver,
Yeah.
I participated in some of the methods training that was hosted at your school, I
Yeah.
think. So,
Yeah, it
well,
was. Yeah.
congratulations on to the community and to yourself for all those efforts at kind of building that type of infrastructure. So Don, you've been at this a while, and
For sure.
as many of us have, and so during that time, you have the opportunity to interact with a lot of doctoral students and junior faculty who came into the game because they needed to publish.
Yeah.
But it turns out that publishing in our top journals is harder than they may seem, and a lot of time authors face research methods kinds of challenges. And so I wondered if there was kind of some common types of challenges that you see authors struggle with, that maybe if we can increase awareness of those in kind of a preemptive way, it'll do some good. So what
Yeah.
kinds of things that come to mind when you think about those methodological challenges?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Larry. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you and I go back to the early 90s and we've seen these problems, persist since then. And what I see strategy and strategy researchers doing, and particularly at all levels, is still struggling with some very basics. What is the contribution? Why is the research question interesting? Those types of kind of big picture issues still exist. But methodologically, when I think about the real challenges right now, I think we still have far to go with improving measurement.
Hmm.
We struggle with this. I think the methodological work in strategy in the broader area has advanced dramatically in terms of analysis. And I'll talk a little bit, about this a little bit later, but we're getting quite good at that. And we've imported techniques and logics from economics and
Hmm.
sociology and others. But when I think about methods in terms of design and measurement and analysis, there's less variation in design. We use a lot of non-experimental designs, some quasi. So there's really not a lot of variation there, but measurement is a big area that we need to improve. I see so many articles, and particularly by younger scholars using maybe single item measures,
Hmm.
not testing the validity or the reliability of the measures. And many people, I feel like, just don't quite think that area through enough.
Hmm.
And I think that's an area, if we just take measurement and we think about how that can be improved from construct and variable definitions to aligning measures and attributes with those measures to validating them to understanding how to using confirmatory factor analysis for validation and I think we have much more to do there. In fact, if we just take some of the major constructs in the literature, many of them have not yet been validated
Hmm.
in a strong sense. So I think that, Larry, I think we just can take that area and just go deep into it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that would improve the field significantly.
Yeah. Well, maybe that occurs because so many of the people that are drawn to your community come from that type of economics background, and it's more comfortable adopting the econometrics
Yeah.
kinds of techniques,
Right.
procedures, recommendations,
Yeah.
whereas measurement, the foundations of kind of measurement come out of psychology, where
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
historically been less involvement, and they just doesn't quite gravitate or doesn't quite connect in the same way.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to see us do more meso work as well, where we maybe start getting into the more finer grained thinking too. That would absolutely help us to improve that measurement side. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Don, one of the other areas that you've been involved in that's so important for all of our community across the different areas of management relates to, basically this crisis
Yeah.
about the competence and the knowledge base that we've built.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's seen more attention being placed on replication and
Yeah,
reproducibility. And I know that's something that you've been involved with. In fact, your last webcast kind of was
right,
in that particular topic
right.
area. So how do you think strategy's doing in dealing with all of this?
We're doing better. Absolutely doing better. So in 2016, Strategic Management Journal, the field's major top tier journal devoted exclusively to strategy, came out with a special issue devoted to replications, and the editors, the co-editors, and as well as the editors of the journal themselves, and there was some overlap between those. And I've invited replication studies into the SMJ, and a
Mhm,
special issue published, 8 or 10 replications. And from that, they then opened a call for replications, and the SMJ would not only accept them, but promote them and want to
mhm,
receive replications. So when you now you submit a paper to SMJ, one of the manuscript central queries is this a replication? So the field is trying to increase and improve scientific credibility by inviting replications. And the editors of that special issue, the co-editors, were very careful about describing replication research. And I thought they did an excellent service to strategy researchers. And basically, it went along the lines of uh, you may find your replication does not align with the original or focal study you're looking at. You may have non-significant findings. That is not a criticism or an implied failure of the original article. It simply meant that given however you varied your study, whether it was a different time
mhm,
period, whether you used different measures, a different analytical technique, that these findings did not generalize to to those variances that you have, those variations. And that's important to know. And that invites more replications and more careful study along those lines. And I thought that was a great service for us because it really got us thinking about, let's not worry about, that someone's results weren't replicated, therefore casting doubt in their study. No, replication's not about that. It's about trying to find the parameters of generalization. So the
mhm,
strategy field is taking that quite seriously now by having this top journal publish replications. And there have been some since 2016, not many, but some. And there have also were replications that go back into the 90s, even in the 80s, that have been quite profound. And I think it's important to recognize that some of those replications have had big impact. I could go back and tell you stories, and I won't, but some of the field's earliest studies were replicated with some variation and found that the results changed and such. So it's been in our field for a long time. I can think of articles in the early 80s. I can think of articles in the late 90s. And some of these articles have hundreds of citations. So they've done well. But I think that now it's become visible. It's become invited. And I think it's improving. SMJ, and in fact, other journals, of course, have increased their reporting requirements to improve
mhm,
transparency. uh, some journals, like the Journal of Management, I was involved with this endeavor too, where we worked not only on transparency, but when a paper got to the R&R stage, a methods expert not on the team would be brought in to just review the methods section and see if there was any issues that were missing. And this wasn't just analysis, this was measures and design too. And I think JOM has done the field a great service with that
okay,
innovation. And I know they're continuing to do it. So we started under David Allen leadership, and I was, as I said, directly involved, and Fred Oswald participated in this too. And I have not seen that yet in strategy per se, but I think just knowing there's that kind of attention out there has made people much more transparent about how they do their studies. And I think that's part of it. So, kind of a long-winded answer, Larry. I'm sorry, kind of circular, but I think
oh
the
no,
attention is improving. The attention's improving. Replications have become legitimate and requested and desired now. And I think the combination of that, along with improved transparency, has been a big improvement for us.
yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned how many years you and I have been
Yeah,
involved in this, and I
yeah,
don't know how it was with you, but I think with me and some of my contemporaries, there was sort of this view that, you get your methods training while you're in school,
yeah,
and that's basically going to be the toolkit that you draw upon through the rest of your career. And of
yeah,
course, that's because you don't have the perspective to realize how much um, those methods and recommended techniques are going to be changing and
yeah,
evolving. I
yeah,
think it's a great thing that we have things like the strategic management methods community and the journal ORM that are
yeah,
supporting that, but it basically means that it's really tough for people to keep track of all that's going on. So you kind of have a perspective and strategy kind of at a higher level
yeah.
perspective. And so I wondered whether there are some important areas within the strategic management literature where best practices have changed the most. Where if you were going to do something 10 years ago, you would have to do it really differently now, as an
Yeah,
example.
yeah, yeah. Analysis, without a doubt, falls into that category. We just to step back, endogeneity, and I'll talk
Hmm.
about this a little bit with the project I'm going to do with the webcast on. Endogeneity has taken us by storm. Now, we can trace some of the earlier arguments to the late 90s, but it was kind of slow in getting traction in the methods community or in the literature itself. But boy, that has become the major methodological issue in strategy. And typically, the way we've been thinking about it is, so endogeneity is external factors that outside of our models that are causing a correlation between our independent variable and the error term. And the research on that has been, what are these different sources and then how can you design a study to address them or minimize their threat? And then most of our thinking along that line has been analysis based and the import of techniques from econometrics, these, two-step least squared models or three-step least square models for how we can help address some of these threats. But that has all kind of have evolved into what I would say are a set of best practices. Travis Serto, Matt Semedini, Mike Withers, and others have done a fabulous job of developing a set of papers that have appeared in various, and there's others too. Don't let me, there are many others in this area. Sarah Walfolds has done some work recently, and Clarity at Illinois has done some work where they've reviewed how we have went about conducting these two-stage, three-square tests to reduce endogeneity threats empirically, and they've identified how much variability there was in 10 years ago,
Yeah,
and they've come up with, these are our problem areas and these are things we need to do to improve it. So they will, they've given us now very clear guidance on how to select instrumental variables, how to test whether or not the instrument variables are really effective and strong. So there's been work in that area as well as the techniques themselves. So that area methodologically, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but that area is really the one that has the most coherent and comprehensive set of best practices now. And there
yeah,
probably still is some disagreement about it, but I think the general process itself has become much clearer over the
yeah.
last few years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a great example, and yeah, we've been very thankful to have Travis
Yeah.
and Travis Sertle and Mike Withers participate with Karma. So, well, Don, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're having this chat to kind of get warmed up for what you're going to be doing in
Yeah.
3 weeks. Can you give us a preview of your webcast lecture?
Yeah, just a little bit. When I'm really looking at here as an overlooked aspect of this endogeneity threat. And that is that in most non-experimental designs, we have to choose a sample. And the way we choose those samples can make a non-random sample. So example, if we're interested in firms making acquisitions or divestitures or some action, we often go out and we choose a sample of those firms. Now, in terms of selecting them, a question comes up is how are we going to control for the selection that we went through and creating this non-random sample? So what I'm going to be looking at is the use of match samples to help address or help control for endogeneity threats associated with selection effect or sample selection bias. And in particular, what I'm interested in is trying to just identify how we can go about doing that and being a little more specific about it. Right now, Larry, there's very little precedent exists for how to create, how to use, evaluate, and report match samples to
Mhm.
help offset the non-random samples that we have. And as a result of not having much precedent, we may be indeed using approaches that don't give us optimal solutions for our match sample. We may be missing dropping cases. We may get empirical results that aren't as strong as they can be, and so on. So, in short, what I'm going to do is instead of thinking about analysis and trying to correct for bias associated with match samples, I want to go upstream to the design
Mhm.
and think how can we come up with stronger research designs to help reduce bias there before we have to correct for it in the analysis. You know, one of the most significant books we have in methods, Cook and Campbell, and so on. And Shadish Cook and Campbell had this research designs and validity and so on for non-experimental and quasi-experimental designs. And they say something really interesting in their preface. It's in the interplay between design and analysis, design wins. And
That is good.
yeah, but what I like about it is if we can learn how to structure our designs better,
Uh-huh.
stronger, if we can work on it there, if we can improve how we structure our research designs, in particular with the use of matched samples, and we know which technique to choose when and how to go about doing that better, then I think that'll help improve our designs, help reduce the bias that comes into the correction in the first place. So I'm going to talk about match samples, the need for them. I'm going to talk about I'm going to review the major techniques used to create them. And then I'm going to give a summary of some best practices to use. So we going forward, we have an idea of what method to use under what conditions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remain the proud owner of Campbell and Stanley, Cook and Campbell, and the Shadish version of
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And I use it in my methods classes. And honestly, the non-equivalent control designs is my
Yeah.
favorite topic.
Yeah.
And we oftentimes I like to say good research is a combination of statistic of a measurement, analysis, and design.
Yeah.
But we get so focused on the analysis, we
Yep.
neglect the measurement, and we certainly neglect the design. So uh, I will be very much looking forward to hearing what you say about that. And as being a longtime leader of the methods community, it's just going to be an honor and a privilege to host your webcast. Again, that's January 31st, 3 weeks from today at 12 noon Eastern Time, and you can find more information about the webcast and about Carm at our website. Don, it was great catching up with you.
My
Stay
pleasure.
warm, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks. I look forward to it, Larry. Thank you very much for your time.